Chapter 9. Right, Andorn said, after closing the bedroom door. His friends were sat in different parts of the room, Saria and Mira perched on the end of the double bed together, Thorgrim on the chest at the end, and Jarlen leaning against the wall. There was a small chair to Andorn's right, so he sat on it, still facing the others. As he did, Ulfr finally understood they were having some kind of meeting and flopped himself down on the floor. After eating, Bryn had arrived, confirming they were there as the trading caravan's escort and settling their bill for them, and then left them to their own devices. As the afternoon had worn on, Andorn had persuaded the small group to head to a room and have a quick discussion on the next course of action.
I still don't think I can believe the priest is doing harm, but it's clear something is going on. They do not appear a happy set of companions, Thorgrim said.
Aye, it's not exactly sounding like wedded bliss, Jarlen added. I'd wager something is going on, but it makes no clear sense why they'd leave here after staying so long.
No, there's still a lot to discover and work out, but I must confess, I'm inclined to believe Mira and Saria's fears right now. Andorn nodded to the two women, and Mira beamed. The priest appears to have abducted Kiana, but it's a comfort to know she's not been harmed and is at least somewhat cooperative.
Then the question becomes, what now? Thorgrim asked. We don't know where they went or how to find them.
Perhaps not, Saria replied. But we still have the description of the priest's carriage, and I think we have done well to find that they came here. It was a stroke of luck, even if it answers none of our questions on why or where they've gone.
We may not have those questions answered until we find them, and find them we must. We have grown fortunate enough from merely asking those who might know. Let us continue our questions in a guarded fashion. Andorn got up again, already disliking the uncomfortable wooden chair. It was too small, hard, and creaked alarmingly.
I wouldn't say no to another drink and the opportunity to talk to the locals,
Jarlen replied, grinning. That doesn't surprise me. But please remember that we are meant to be earning more money from this quest than it costs us, and we should be wary of making ourselves seem too keen. A priest and a woman he escorts do not appear to be in grave danger, and we do not want anyone deciding we are hunting them and then giving us misleading information.
Understood, boss, Jarlen said. I'm a master at gleaning information from those who have had a touch too much to drink.
I feel our time would be better spent asking if anyone saw where their carriage went, perhaps starting with the guards on each of the town's gates, Thorgrim said, still sitting. I am not the kind of dwarf who enjoys tavern talk with the drunk. Few know how to be civil.
Someone needs to make sure Jarlen holds his drink, and I've seen the sky enough for one day, Mira replied. I'll help here, but then I want to sleep in a soft bed. I'll come with you, Thorgrim, Saria said. I was given the carriage description, and I've never been in a town like this. The idea of seeing more of it is appealing.
We're all settled then, 3 of us in each group, and we'll meet back here to discuss what we've learned before bedtime. More eager for a drink than he'd also care to admit, Andorn opened the door again and ushered everyone out. They made their way back to the inn's large common room again before Thorgrim, Saria, and Ulfr made for the door. In the time they'd been away, the room had gained a few more bodies, but it could still hold more, and Andorn knew it would before the evening was through. Jarlen and Mira went straight to the bar to get them drinks, allowing Andorn to follow, drawing his cloak around him and blending in with the shadows. He knew he was going unnoticed when Dale raised an eyebrow at the request for 3 mugs of ale, clearly not seeing there were 3 of them to drink it. The innkeeper didn't make a fuss, however, but started when Jarlen turned, looked for Andorn, and Andorn reached out to take it. Until the movement and the logical progression of the drink, Dale hadn't noticed him at all. For a moment, Jarlen only turned, putting the bar behind him and taking a hearty mouthful of the ale while his eyes took in the scene. his eyes fixed on a group of fishermen who had arrived in the last few minutes, a round of almost empty drinks between them. The first ale tended to go down a bit faster.
"I'm going to need a little coin,"
Yarlin whispered in Andorn's direction a moment later. Andorn sighed, but handed him 5 silver pieces. It was a good job he had been careful with their money, and he knew the cost would be worth it if it gave them information on the destination of the priest and Kiana. Putting on more swagger than normal and linking arms with Mira, Yarlin made his way over to the fishermen and struck up a conversation.
"Good haul today, lads?" he asked. "I know it can be tough when the winds are as calm as they are today."
"We've had better,"
one of them replied, as Andorn once again settled into a nearby seat, his hood up and his mug almost entirely tucked into his cloak with the rest of him.
"But we've also had worse."
"Well, a man like me can only be grateful you're working so hard to bring us food. Let me get you all around and hear some of your tales. I've been long from the sea, and nothing quite soothes my mind like hearing how others have fared upon her."
Calling for Dale, Yarlin blew a silver getting a pitcher for the small group, and they pulled up a chair. Excusing herself, however, Mira asked another group beside, playing cards, if she could join them. They were a little farther from Andorn, but neither group was trying to be quiet, so he was left able to listen and study expressions. While the sailors began to talk of a broken net and getting a good haul anyway, Mira sat down and waited to be dealt her first hand. It was a form of poker Andorn hadn't played much but understood, and from his position, he could see the hands of 2 of the men, but not Mira. He briefly considered telling her what they had somehow, but refocused. They were there to find 2 missing people and possibly stop something dreadful from happening. Starting a tavern brawl because they were cheating wasn't going to help. Of course, if you were very good at poker, you were accused of cheating either way. Men especially didn't like to play cards with those who were too much better than themselves. They were far too insecure to be faced with their own failings so blatantly. It was one of the few traits of man that made Andorn glad he had some elvish blood and elvish sensibilities. Andorn's elven father had felt none of it, often reminding him that he would find himself good at some things and not at others, and how it was far more important to grow than to be perfect or the best. Time and effort made someone better, not fear and bravado. Once again, Andorn had to remind himself to focus, but for now, he merely listened to 2 conversations, neither interesting to him. Yarlin had managed to get the fishermen to talk of tales in general, things that had happened, and they regaled Yarlin with all sorts, most of which were lies or grossly exaggerated facts. At cards, Mira was skilled but wary, having managed to win just over 3 silver, only to lose one of them again. Losing one in a single hand seemed to relax the men around her, however, the pot going to the person who needed it most. As both tables moved on to the next round of drinks, Andorn continued to watch and listen. A couple of times his companions glanced his way, seeming to check he was still there, often momentarily surprised to find he was. It made him smile a little. Only Saria could keep track of him entirely.
"Did you hear about poor Jim?"
one of the poker players said as they began another round.
"Lost his horse 2 nights ago. Said something spooked it while he was heading back from the outpost with a message. Only volunteered to run it because it was a cloudless night and almost the full moon. Thought it would be bright enough for him to make the run quickly."
"Did the guard offer to buy him another?"
"He said not, on account of him telling tales. They didn't believe what he said had spooked it. Something about a large brown beast."
Andorn sighed. Large brown animals were usually bears, and he doubted the priest and Kiana had anything to do with some forest bear. But the poker player continued his tale, even Mira asking questions. It all amounted to poor Jim Lad having to fork out another horse himself. No idea what had happened to the first still. If Andorn had bid at the card table, he'd have suggested they find it at the stable. Animals panicked in the way they'd described often tried to find their way somewhere familiar and safe, but Andorn wanted to keep to the shadows and not draw attention to himself. Over the hour or so he had been listening, and everyone had been talking, more people had entered, either joining groups of people that already existed or forming new ones of their own, but few held any interest for him. Dale had already left for a short while, a young woman taking over at the bar and drawing the attention of more than one unrequited suitor. It all remained uninteresting until a group of 3 farmers came in, Dale with them. Dale spotted Yarlin immediately and ushered his friends over to join the fisherman and him. Andorn sat forward a fraction, sensing purpose on Dale's face, and thankfully, Yarlin was still sober enough to pay attention.
"Have you news of our friends?"
Yarlin asked, but Dale shook his head.
Sadly not. No one has seen them. But am I to understand you're the group who helped the farmers in Fentonia recently?
"Depends who's asking,"
Yarlin replied. It made Andorn grin. It was the kind of cagey response someone made when they were either too stupid to realize that it didn't do anything but confirm things, or knew exactly that, but wanted the questioner to explain things, while making it clear information wasn't likely to be volunteered the other way for self-protection.
We traded more than a few times with the farmers from Fentonia,
the closest guided Dale said.
And it had an impact on us all when they were struggling. We've just had them ask to buy a much larger amount of seed grain from us than ever before. Can only mean one thing. They're all sorted out. So I asked Bryn, and he said you and your friends were local heroes.
"We're definitely willing to own our part in helping clear off the riff-raff in Fentonia,"
Yarlin replied.
Then we'd like to buy you a drink and make you another offer if you'll hear it. We've been having a few problems of our own, and we'd like it sorted before it gets as ugly as it sounds like it did in Fentonia.
"I'm all ears. And a drink to wash down any protests at more potential danger is a mightily nice prospect,"
he replied, grinning. All but ignoring Mira, Andorn continued to focus on Yarlin and the 4 farmers as they pulled up yet more chairs and accepted the drinks Dale quickly brought them.
Our farms are normally more than safe, sitting on the road between us and the big fort down on the point. That close to a guarded structure you don't get many bandits, poachers, or any other kind of trouble. But there's something out there the last 3 nights that made off with our livestock.
A bear, perhaps, Andorn thought to himself, thinking of the earlier conversation the poker players were having. Mira must have heard enough to pick up on it as well, as she glanced back towards Yarlin and the farmers a couple of times, and then to Andorn to check he was also listening. Giving Mira a small nod and flicking his hand back towards the poker table, Andorn gave her permission to keep playing and not worry. She was now up almost 5 silver pieces, and he didn't want her so distracted she lost it all again. At the rate she was going, she'd pay for Yarlin's drinks and then some.
The odd wild animal we normally deal with ourselves, but we tried to handle it today. Went out at noon with the dogs, and the 4 of us to hunt it down and put it out of its misery, or at least work out what it was.
The farmer paused and took a gulp of his drink.
"Go on, Cyril,"
one of the others said.
We never found it. Got near some tracks, found some wool and a spat-out sheep skull. A lot of blood. Well, we tried to get the dogs to have a good sniff, pick up the scent so they could lead us on. They took one tiny little sniff, yowled like they'd been injured, and all the dogs bolted back home. When we returned, they were all in the barn, cowering in the dark. Not one of them would come out for a good 2 hours.
"That does sound mighty strange," Yarlin replied. "So I take it you'd like us to deal with whatever wild creature is taking your sheep and scaring your pups."
Aye, that'd be about the size of it. We can't offer a lot for gratitude, but we've got a little coin between us, and if you're staying in the area, you're welcome to choose a couple of lambs or a calf, some chickens or whatever to help provide for yourselves.
"That's a kind offer. We've got a little business of our own to attend to, but I confess, We've not had much luck. I'm sure the others will agree to helping out while we're here. If it's just one wild animal, we'll have it sorted out in no time. Did you bring any of that wool back with you by any chance? We've got a tracker of sorts with us. One not so easily frightened.
Andorn grinned at Yarlin's mention of Ulfr. He was definitely a boon to the group.
Afraid not. We were so spooked by the dog's reactions, we headed after them. I'd be willing enough to lead you back to the clearing in the morning, though, if you'll consider it helpful.
Aye, that'd do it. Which direction are you out of town?
The West Gate. I'm on the Willowbrook farm. There's a sign on the road on your way to the fort, so you can't miss it. Come by and let the missus know you're there for Sorrel, and she'll have me fetched.
Sorrel got up as he spoke, shook hands with Yarlin, and then the farmers nodded to the fishermen and moved to their own table.
Excuse me, good mariners, but I'll have to return to your good company if you're about another night, Yarlin said, also getting up.
Aye, we'll all be about tomorrow and the night after. Sounds like you'll have a tale to be telling us.
Andorn also got up, Yarlin glancing his way before heading to the rooms. By the time Andorn was on his feet, Mira had finished another hand and was collecting up her winnings. Within a minute, they were all in Andorn's room again.
So, we have another adventure as well? Mira asked before laughing. I've always wanted to have a few chickens.
Andorn chuckled, grateful she'd heard everything. But before they could decide on anything, they needed to know where Thorgrim and Sarya were, and if they found any further information.